Hi everyone. Is it just me or is the coffee... Oh, I'm hearing myself. Let me just take this off. Is it just me or is the coffee really strong here? I feel like jittery. Okay. So yes, I'm an economist, investor, invested in 2 Bitcoin startups. And I'm about to launch our financial research firm. We put out a free report just last week. The original title was How to Position for the Next Rally in Bitcoin. And then the price started bubbling up and we thought, oh, let's change it. And now it's How to Position for the Rally in Bitcoin. It's free. You can just download it. If you bump into me, just ask me for the link. I'll send it to you, or just Google it. Be curious what you think. I'm really excited to be here. I've been off and on traveling and living in Latin America. First time I traveled to Mexico was in 2003. And in 2012, I lived for 9 months in Argentina and in Chile. And since March this year, I've been living in Mexico. It's been really interesting. And I really enjoy coming to Bitcoin events, Bitcoin gatherings in Latin America. There is a bit of a different energy in the room when it comes to Bitcoin. And in this part of the world, sometimes gatherings almost feel like political rallies in the best sense of the word. And I think that has to do with the fact that over here, I think Bitcoin really represents freedom in a very tangible way. It means that I have access to my money and nobody can change that. It means it's not going to happen that one day I'm going to walk to my Bitcoin bank and it's going to be closed because I can be my own banker. It means that the CEO of Bitcoin is not going to come on television and say, we will not devalue Bitcoin. It will not happen. We will not depeg it from this other currency, only to then the next day see that we have a devaluation of, officially 13%, and over a few months it's then 50% or more. Like that doesn't happen in Bitcoin. Bitcoin is very different. And so I feel really privileged to be here. I'm really excited. And I think the topic of how to invest in Bitcoin is very important because Bitcoin represents a new asset class, an entirely new asset class that has never existed before. It's as if gold was invented like 7 years ago and we're here at one of the first gold conferences and it's like, all right, well, how do I buy it? And where should I store gold? And the price is going really crazy. Like, how much should I buy? And I think these questions are really important, as well as an understanding of what Bitcoin really is. So I wanted to give you the opportunity for me to just open the floor for questions and just dive into some practical stuff. If you guys don't feel up for that, if there's not a lot of questions, I can just go to the presentation I had prepared. It's really up to you. I'm really happy to help out however I can.
Hola, hola.
How do you see Bitcoin as a reserve currency? Not in the sense of reserve like the...
Sorry, I heard the Spanish and then I didn't realize you were talking English.
How do you see Bitcoin as a reserve currency? Not reserve like the dollar or the yuan, but as like putting money there like for an insurance company and leaving money there for paying claims later?
So I'm going to try to rephrase your question or repeat it. So you're asking me, how do I see Bitcoin as an asset that can serve as collateral for insurance? Sorry?
Savings collateral. Yeah.
Savings collateral for insurance products. Right. I think that's really a really interesting idea. There's people, actually 2 years ago already, I had a discussion with somebody who was thinking about setting up Bitcoin-based life insurance. So you would then pool money together from maybe 100, maybe 1,000 people, and then when something happens to one of those persons, a dramatic event, or the person deceases, then the policy can be paid out to this one person. And it's interesting because the value of Bitcoin could rise a lot over time. So even a very small amount every year in terms of life insurance could pay out a lot. I think it's perfectly possible. The question is, like, to what extent are people ready to do that, to commit to that, to understand the concept of pooling the money? Yeah, I think Bitcoin is, and that's also what I keep arguing, Bitcoin, at least as an ingredient in a broader mix, is very, very potent to help ensure the value of a portfolio. It's basically cash. It's some of the best cash there is, only it has very different properties, and you cannot just print it out of thin air. So, yeah, I think it's a great idea to consider that. Yes, in English or Spanish? Okay, thank you.
Is it possible to short Bitcoins?
Yeah, you can short Bitcoins.
Where do you borrow them from?
Sorry, who do you borrow from?
Where do you get the borrow?
I didn't understand the last thing.
Where do you get the borrow? In order to short something, you have to go out and borrow it.
Yes. Yeah, so there are various platforms out there. I think the most known one is bitfinex.com. Maybe some people know more platforms. And basically you borrow from other traders who go long Bitcoin, who want to, and it's the platform itself that makes sure, or tries to make sure that there's not, like things don't go wrong in the sense that funds are misappropriated and those kind of things. But yeah, there's definitely platforms that offer leverage. Kraken has recently started offering leverage. I don't know if they do shorts yet. But yeah, for sure, you can short Bitcoin, and you're basically borrowing from other traders. It's not like it comes from nowhere, or it's just phantom Bitcoins from the exchange. They're actually actual Bitcoins. And I'm sure that platforms are working to make that verifiable too. Ira or somebody else? Okay.
Well, my question is very related to the one asked before. And recalling from the from the introduction speech that they made a comparison of Bitcoins to a commodity. Is there actually going or currently in a spot market? Can it be exchanged, or is there a globally exchange market for Bitcoins?
I'm not sure if I understood. Is there a currency in the spot market?
Does Bitcoin have a spot market, or is it globally exchanged as another commodity?
Well, you have a lot of exchanges where Bitcoin is traded, and in those exchanges, the bid and the ask defines the price. And so there is, I'm not sure correct me if I'm not understanding, but you have different Bitcoin prices for different Bitcoin exchanges. And then, of course, you have traders, and I think even institutional players now that are playing arbitrage between those. So overall, the Bitcoin price is quite uniform. Sometimes there's aberrations, especially on platforms where leverage is offered. Sometimes, for example, BTCE is known to have flash crashes, and the price will go a lot below that of the other exchanges. And so that's a little bit of a warning for people who like to play with leverage. You can get burned by this volatility that is specific to exchanges. And then there's also price indices. CoinDesk has one, the WinkDex, the Winklevoss brothers have one, TradeBlock has also, and they create algorithms where they consolidate the price and try to come up with like a uniform Bitcoin price. Does that answer your question? Okay.
So I'd like to rephrase a question from one of Trace Mayer's podcasts recently, which is, why do you hire Bitcoin? I would rephrase, why do you hire Bitcoin as an investment?
Okay, that's great. Yeah, I've been thinking about that. And Adam Beck asked the question as well. Why would you hire Bitcoin? If you consider Bitcoin as a possible employee, what would you want him to do for you? And there's many answers to that. And it's very important because what we want to hire Bitcoin for is going to influence what we want to train Bitcoin to become. Like, how are we going to change the source code? Are we going to increase the block size? Or are we going to leave it the same? So yeah, I think it's an important question. So what do I hire Bitcoin for as an investment? I have three general ideas about that. The first one is, I think, the most important. The first one is an insurance policy. So if I have a currency basket that represents $100, I want to have $0.50 or $1 at least in Bitcoin, because that is going to ensure, help ensure at least the value of that cash. I think that is important. Secondly, so basically as cash. I would hire it as cash that's available, but also as, because it's hard money, it can be a store of value. Second one would be as part of a speculative portfolio. So then you could go a little bit higher in percentage. Speculative portfolio means you create a portfolio that is designed to positively respond to political distortions in the market. So for example, if interest rates are very low and we have a huge stock market bubble or a bond market bubble, I'm going to insure against that by betting on hard asset, by betting on something that cannot just go bankrupt. So that's the second one. Maybe you would think about 3 to 5% of your speculative portfolio. Maybe you'd have some gold in there. Maybe you'd have, depending on the circumstances. And then the third one is more for younger people, people who have more appetite for risk, would be to hire Bitcoin as a bet on an early retirement. Because if you look at the possible outcomes for Bitcoin, even central bankers these days, the Central Bank of Barbados came out with a paper in which they project the price of Bitcoin, and it's not their high-end scenario, it's their kind of base case scenario. They project the price of Bitcoin in 10 years to be $3 million. I'm not saying these people are the authorities and that they're right, but I mean, these prices are not outlandish. So having a little bit of Bitcoin in your portfolio as a young person can really be a bet on an early retirement. So that would be, another hire for Bitcoin.
Hello. So one question. So how does how do you obtain Bitcoin on large volumes? I mean, because before I had a high net worth individual that was very interested in investing in Bitcoin, but I mean, before Genesis trading, there's a limit. So I was using Coinbase to buy Bitcoin.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, it was kind of hard, like buying every day $3,000 because this guy didn't have a social security.
Yep.
Neither do I. So, other than Genesis trading, how do you transact Bitcoin in large volumes?
Yes. Yeah, and I think especially it depends where you live as well, right? It depends on your nationality. It depends on regulations sometimes. But if you are a high net worth individual and you have some kind of offshore construction, I think today it's very possible. It's not hard, especially when if you be talking about hundreds of thousands of, even then actually. So let me just answer the question. You don't have to register with an exchange. You can set up multiple accounts with multiple exchanges and then just do that. Coinbase is not really a Bitcoin high volume exchange. It's more like a store, and you just you buy a few for your daily use. But yeah, like exchanges like Bitstamp and I mean the bigger ones. Even I think the Coinbase exchange, once you've been approved to a higher level, you get to trade in high volumes. You can also order blocks of Bitcoin outside of the exchanges over the counter. You can go to the stock market even and invest in a Bitcoin fund, Bitcoin-backed fund. Maybe somebody in the audience remembers the ticker symbol, but there's, sorry? Yeah, I think the BIT is already available online. There is be careful because you will pay a premium of 10% over the actual Bitcoin price. So maybe that's not the best place to go right now. But yeah, for sure. There's a lot of, we can talk maybe afterwards and like I can write down some names or we can research it a bit. But much more than 2 years ago. It's much easier. And of course, I mean, I have to caution if you're thinking about buying a lot of Bitcoins for cash, there's quite a bit of risk involved there. So you might want to stay online.
Hello.
Hi.
One question. What I have learned is that Bitcoin is very sensitive to higher amounts of exchange. If I want to buy the equivalent of $100,000, the Bitcoin is very sensitive. I think it's not deep enough in order for not to move the market so fast. Do you envision in the future, in the near future, that this volatility or sensitivity of the Bitcoin would it reduce because this uncertainty is very difficult for traders
yep.
or for exporters to manage? to manage the volatility if you want to buy a good, a commodity, whatever? I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Yeah, it's true that relatively speaking, Bitcoin markets are fairly shallow. The volumes, I mean, I think 100,000 probably wouldn't move the price all that much. But that's where the over-the-counter comes into play, right? You can just place an order, negotiate the price, and it's never on the exchange, so you don't move the price. But of course, if you're a trader, maybe you want to move in and out in a few hours with those kind of volumes. I think more of what you are talking about is the solution. More traders coming onto the exchanges and maybe doing it with 10,000 or 20,000, and they provide the liquidity to the markets. And that's going to happen more and more, especially, you can compare with what happened to gold. In 2000, gold was pretty much dead. And then, you know, by 2004, it started gaining traction. But it was also the same, like where you could only invest in gold mining companies. But then in 2006, you had the gold ETFs. And then there were easy vehicles came onto the market for people to move in and out. And yeah, the GDX and GLD, these financial assets have huge volumes, and those offer the solutions for traders. Maybe Bitcoin, people who want to hold Bitcoin for the long term might be skeptical of those products because is it going to be fully backed by Bitcoin? Can I get delivery of my Bitcoins? But for traders, this is the way to go. And so I think once we have some Bitcoin ETFs coming onto the market, you will see trading volumes go up a lot. Does that answer your question?
When you're evaluating an asset, you have to compare it with another with similar characteristics. Talking about Bitcoins, which could be these other assets which you could make the benchmark?
Comparing the Bitcoin price or the characteristics of Bitcoin?
Yes, the performing of the Bitcoin.
You mean the pattern of the price of Bitcoin?
Yes.
Is there another asset that we can compare it to?
Yes.
I think Bitcoin is a startup currency. We've not seen that before, so it will have some specific characteristics. But if you look at technology stocks, for example, you've seen like the same kind of very wild rallies and then crashes. I do think because Bitcoin is sensitive, because Bitcoin is an answer to moments of panic, like what we saw in Cyprus, what we saw like in China, more capital controls. Maybe the Australians are panicking a little bit because their currency has dropped by 30%. If you go to Google Trends and you look for how to buy Bitcoin, I think it is, or buy Bitcoin, then you see that Australia today is the country where people search that the most. It's not the US, it's not the UK. I think because of that, the spikes in Bitcoin are more aggressive. You see the rallies are much more aggressive than, I mean, if nobody's going to panic buy Microsoft or panic buy Google, but people can really panic buy Bitcoin if they think that the next day they won't have access to their bank account. So I really do think that it's unique. You did have something like that in the gold market, especially in the late 70s. There was a lot of panic buying because people thought that hyperinflation would happen. But even there, the market was not as accessible as Bitcoin is today. So even that big rally happened a bit slower than what we saw in Bitcoin.
Tuur, I have a question that I think many people in the audience might have as well. You just said that we are about to maybe start a new rally. Where do you think it could end up? I mean, what's the target?
The target is the moon, obviously. Yeah, I don't know. I've been thinking about this a lot, and I find it very difficult to name a number and say like, oh, well, this is going to be the top. It's kind of like asking yourself in maybe like 1998, how high is the Nasdaq going to go? Like, we're going to see a big bubble in internet stocks. How high is it going to go? I don't know, but will we know? Will we feel, if we are honest with ourselves, that the market is overheated? Probably. Kind of like back in December 2013, when Bitcoin was 1,000, I thought we had seen a double top and it was going to go down, and it did. And so how high the price is going to go is difficult. I think there is a few things to look out for. Sentiment is really what I try to look at, is how do people talk? Do you see stories of people putting all their life savings into Bitcoin? Do you see all the skepticism go away, as if anything, like there's no other solution than Bitcoin goes another times 10 or another times 5? That's when you want to be cautious. But no, I think in my mind I've been like thinking about, obviously the $1,000 level is important. Maybe there's like a 20, actually I think I wrote it down in the AMA, let me go back to that. In terms of percentages, I think you might be able to say something. So yeah, I think that we are going to see a rally in which Bitcoin will challenge the $1,000 level. So maybe like a 60% chance that happens. And then maybe the other 40% is that we go above. Sorry, let's see. No, 40% of that we go above 1,000. And so I think there's less than 50% chance, maybe 40% chance that we will stay below 900 in 2016. And that we have to wait a bit longer. The block size debate is still not over. But I really, my money is on a big rally in 2016. The block size is having, the block reward is having, the block size debate seems to be maturing. I think we are going to see a solution there. Sidechains is huge. It's a huge story, and it's really underappreciated. This is, I don't know, this is the story I'm most excited about in Bitcoin, and I have been for a while. And also obviously the financial system is in dire straits. I think markets are really overvalued. We could see a stock market crash happen in 2016. So, and also, we have already seen a lot of volatility in regular markets. Look at the oil price that went down so much, the Swiss franc, this huge surprise, all these emerging market currencies that are going down. So, plenty of fuel for a big rally in Bitcoin, I think.
Okay, thank you. Tenemos tiempo para dos preguntas más, una aquí y otra aquí.
Hi. Do you know which platform that is open source for high frequency trading, and the platform, and with which exchanges do you recommend to use this?
Specifically open source platforms where the code is open source?
Yes.
I don't know. I think there's some that have, maybe there's some people in the audience that have a better answer to that. But I think there are some that use some open source code, but as far as I know, most platforms do have proprietary code. There are some, I think like Alpha Point, for example, they're trying to build like an exchange in a box. So they build the software and then other entrepreneurs can use that. But I think there are some other people in here at the conference that can offer you a better answer to that.
And which exchanges do you recommend to be accessed with?
In general?
Yeah.
But for high frequency trading,
yes.
or?
Yes, for
well, I would, if you're thinking about as more from the institutional angle, I would take a look at TradeBlock. The guys at tradeblock.com, they have a platform where tradeblock.com.
Okay.
They have a platform where you can have a single interface, and you can trade on different exchanges at the same time. So you can do arbitrage in one place.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. Which is the most profitable or characteristic for investing of Bitcoins for us as Mexicans?
Wait, what was the character? No, can you repeat that?
For us as Mexicans,
yeah.
Which is the most profitable characteristic for investing of Bitcoin?
The most popular characteristic for investing in Bitcoin. So you mean the most important motivation? The most profitable way is to buy some Bitcoin. No, I don't know what you mean. Maybe you mean. Yeah. Right. Yeah, I think it's true. There's a lot of distrust, and rightfully so. And I think you can generalize in Latin America to invest, to basically give your money away to some institution or something. And I think that's Bitcoin really is. If you can study Bitcoin, then you will realize that the answer is that Bitcoin really is like gold. You can own it yourself. You can put it on your cell phone is maybe not the safest way, but there are ways to store it offline. You don't even need a computer for that. You can make a multi-sig wallet offline. And so if you educate yourself about that, and you keep your percentage low, then why wouldn't you, right? I mean, I don't know. Like I see no argument why you wouldn't put 0.5% of your cash into Bitcoin, especially if you live in a country where the currency is very volatile and the future value of the currency is very insecure. Then I would hire Bitcoin as an insurance for your cash.
Okay, thank you very much, Tuur. It's been amazing presentation. I think we're all rushing to buy more Bitcoin right now. Please, a big applause for Tuur. Thanks.